Welcome to Travel Again Presents, the weekly travel roundup covering the headwinds and tailwinds impacting the business of travel. Please welcome our hosts, Mike McCormick and Ed Silver. How you doing today, Mike?
Good. How are you doing, Ed?
Good. Welcome to our episode 5 of the podcast.
Yep. Already episode 5. Well,
ready?
Yeah, I put my Phillies jersey on again today. We just have to start with the sporting news, of course, but we're 30-13, quarter of the way through the season, best record in baseball, first team to get 30 wins, one of the fastest to get to 30 in some time. So life is good. We're heading into summer, and the Phillies are playing great ball right out of the chute. So can't beat that.
Good stuff. Good stuff to be a Philly fan. I don't know that our guest today is a very sporty fella, but you can try to engage him in some sports talk if you need to.
That's okay. We got a lot to talk about, though.
Okay. So just one thing before we begin. Next week, we'll be in Dallas for our live roadshow event on May 22nd. It's a do not miss event. Register today to attend. It's at the Southwest Airlines headquarters, and we're excited to have them host. You must register to attend, and it is complimentary to attend.
Yep.
Looking forward to that, Mike.
Yep, me too.
All right, let's get started today with the news. Mike, today I start with an article I was actually covered in a number of places. I'll show the Reuters article. Major airlines sue the Biden administration over fee disclosure rules. What's going on here?
Well, so I think, again, well publicized was the Biden administration putting in place with the DOT these new rules about kind of in two areas. One area was payment for disruption. So, requiring airlines to make accommodations when a traveler is there's disrupted in some way due to flight cancellations, et cetera, or baggage lost, and making it more of a standardized way that it's approached and a requirement for airlines to do that, which is very positive for consumers. The other part of the ruling that went in place is about fee disclosure, meaning we're going to adopt an approach that's already done in Europe, which is basically that you have to disclose all the fees up front. So when you're making a purchase, you understand what they are, and things like, and then you get into real gray area things where you can buy luggage, pre-buy it online, but then you get to the airport and it costs more, or you didn't know. And it's like creating, again, clarity for consumers so they know what they're buying. Well, the airlines, together behind an organization called Airlines for America, but it's the trade association representing all the airlines, or all major U.S. airlines anyway, went back and filed a suit, suing the DOT, and saying that this is basically, egregious and terrible, meaning the fee disclosure part, and overreach and unwarranted, and consumers don't need to know. It's a very interesting approach, and one that I would say, again, continues to be one of frustration, because again, what we're trying to accomplish, what the government's trying to accomplish, and they should, is they've got to represent consumers. The airlines enjoy a number of protections around the way their businesses are run. It's not a free market in the airline world. There's a lot of issues, gates, routes, regulation all around the way they have to operate and the way they compete. So, to say that the consumer needs protection in these areas, that we should be following some of these basic kind of things in terms, and that things we've fought for in the past. We've talked about these multiple times around things such as, the 3-hour tarmac rule, and other, no voice calls on planes here in the States, other things that are good for the consumer. And then things like this, that again, guaranteed payments for disruption, making sure that everyone understands what they're buying, no hidden fees. All those things are, I think, very positive, good for the industry and good for travel. It's frustrating to me when you see these lobbying, like trade association A4A, which is the name for Airlines for America, countersuits like this. You're like, it's hard to get, let's say, have any compassion and certainly any real support as a consumer to say, wait a minute, why? Why do they think that's overreach? It's not. Yeah. And the idea is to create a common set of rules that they all have to follow. So it takes it away from being a competitive issue. It's not about who does it and who doesn't do it. If they're all required to do it, then it's a level playing field, and that's what you're looking for, and it's good for the consumer. So again, we'll follow this one to see where it goes. Interestingly enough, there was one airline that did not participate, and it was Southwest. And they say they continue to be in communication, but they did not participate in the lawsuit, which I think is an interesting omission from the group.
Yep. No baggage fees there. And obviously that's one of the reasons why they don't feel they need to participate.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Mike, for the perspective. Our next article is actually a series of articles, and literally AI this week was everywhere. On Monday, OpenAI held their spring update and introduced GPT-4o, followed by Tuesday, where Google made major updates to its advanced large language model, LLM Gemini. And to say that there was a little bit of news here is an understatement. It was covered everywhere. Any thoughts on this, Mike?
Well, no, this one's for you, Ed. I mean, so let's talk a little bit. Let's turn the tables here. Again, all this news, everything that's happening, again, I guess two questions, like, what does this all mean? Is it what is it going to do in terms of how we're all affected? And then what does it mean for travel? Is this going to accelerate, AI use in different travel forums, areas, businesses? Like, what does this all mean?
Well, look, between the two sets of announcements, there are some overlapping similarities, although I would encourage our listeners to go and watch some of the videos that have come out that at least summarize each of them, because there's a lot embedded in there. OpenAI, highly multimodal, meaning you can use voice, text, vision. It can see your screen and it can make commentary on it. It was almost like watching the movie Her, if you've seen that with Joaquin Phoenix, where the assistant is talking and you're interacting with her, and it's a lovely voice. She has a kind of a really nice voice, but it is amazing how many things you can do with it. Then on the side of Google, embedding all of that powerful functionality in everything that Google does is where they are headed. And that includes search, that includes Gmail, that includes everything you do, across the Google stack, which, by the way, is a lot. You do a lot with Google, whether you realize it or not. And that also goes across their Android devices. It is also multimodal for them. They showed off a number of voice type assistants, and I would say a lot more to come. And you can be sure that Microsoft, one of the other big monsters here, which uses OpenAI's tools behind the scenes, will come out shortly with amazing features built into the Microsoft stack.
Yeah, right.
So then your question, how does all this play out for Google? Well, for travel, I would be sure. In fact, they had one demo that showed off itinerary building. Everybody is always talking about itinerary building as one of the killer apps that could come out of this. And they did do a demo on stage of blending some chat functionality in terms of asking it to build a multi-day trip specific around my calendar, because it has access to my calendar, things I've done in the past, using all of that to help build out a dynamic trip, asking, do I want to have dinner around a meeting I might have? And so very cool type travel functionality could come out of that. But I would still say on both OpenAI and Google, I would say a lot is still to come. A lot of this is amazing to watch grow up, but not quite there yet from a travel perspective. But I would argue it's coming. The question is it here yet? No, not from my perspective. Is it coming? Yes, it's definitely coming. And then just as one aside, the next day, the new CEO of Expedia had her first day at work as Expedia Group launched a new AI assistant called Romeo. And so they began to show off what they believe they can do using their data in this new AI assistant meant to help travelers with research, booking, and in-trip services. So a little bit of testing from Expedia. They had done some testing previously. a little more coming together using these tools. So I would say, look, the future is bright in terms of what can be. It's not here yet, but there's an awful lot to watch, and it's an awful fun space to be keeping an eye on right now.
Well, will the new AI travel assistant be able to tell me how much my bags are going to cost? Because apparently the airlines don't want that to happen.
Probably won't be able to tell you that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there
So
was
other than
some
that,
news.
it'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some news about AI assistants helping with itinerary disruption and being more accurate in
Right.
describing what is wrong, in terms of your
Yeah.
disruption.
United was piloting some of that, has been kind of working it through their system. So you don't get your flight is delayed, your flight is canceled and nothing. You get hey, this is what's really happening, which is, again, seemingly low hanging fruit in terms of opportunity areas. But again, apparently not how much your bags cost. But other than that, we're rolling. So, well, spoiler alert for travel again. I mean, we'll definitely be spending a lot more time on AI, and we're gearing up for some big things, in terms of where we're going to focus and look at the intersection of AI and travel, which, like you said, very much in its infancy. I don't know if you could call it that yet. I don't think we're in infancy yet. It sounds like we're just dabbling around the edges a little bit as we get
So,
ready
so,
to
so
take it on
far,
full on. Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. Next article is in anticipation of our guest. And so I
Mhm.
actually mentioned this last week, but I didn't show the article. We didn't get to talk about it in depth. But pay later lenders have an issue with credit bureaus. The New York Times reported this. It was also discussed in an NBC News article. Give some context to our viewers around what this issue is, and then we'll talk about it with our guest.
Yeah, so this is a good lead in because I think one is interesting because it's part of a general trend about doing some, buy now pay later things. Both was so the other article you mentioned in NBC article was about how younger generations are using this very much as kind of like micro kind of bridge financing for all different things, right? Looking at these because you're not doing a hard hit on your credit, you're taking relatively smaller amounts, being able to stretch out payments, bridge, when you need funding in certain ways. And it's just, ways that, again, is creating and a lot more frequency in terms of numbers or types of transactions, right? So it's interesting. And now the credit bureaus are starting to wake up to it and say more, hey, maybe certain areas we need to be, getting more involved. Maybe it should be a hard hit on your credit. Maybe it should be, documented, reported on your credit. And I think there's there's certainly some healthy debate here about whether that should be the case or not, as opposed to some of the ways that it can be pretty draconian for consumers today when it comes to things on their credit rating that and the impact of them and the length of the impact of them when they're just part of like normal ways that you're trying to live life and spend your money, etc. So interesting and a good lead in to our guest today. That Tom Botts, who's the CCO of Uplift, which is a model based on buying now, paying later for travel. And we'll get into all that in that sector of the marketplace today with our one-on-one interview. So I'm looking forward to that one.
All right. We will be right back with our guest.
Well, this one is just one, again, we talked about Southwest Airlines and now we're heading down. They're hosting our roadshow event at their headquarters. But I guess a couple of things. One is we want to thank them again for hosting. It's fantastic. And it's, again, another way that they giving back to the industry, which they have in the past. Southwest was a really great supporter of our Travel Again project during the pandemic, which is how this all was born, years ago. And, again, just culturally, they're just such a terrific organization, the way they treat their people. And then it shows in terms of the service levels they provide, the way you see it with their staff. And again, just thanks again to them. I think it's great. They take, they always really do have a great approach, even within the industry, to us working in the industry. They're a terrific group to work with. So I thought, definitely worth calling them out today. And again, thanking them for their support of, Travel Again and now Travel Again Advisory.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Next up is Tom Botts. Tom is the Chief Commercial Officer for Uplift, which was acquired by Upgrade late last summer. Tom is a travel industry executive, investor, and board member with 30 plus years of experience in the travel industry across OTAs, consulting, airlines, and hospitality. Also, for the record, Tom, Mike, and I were part of a group that started a consultancy together, and we've known Tom a long time. Please welcome to the stage, Tom Botts.
Thanks, Ed and Mike. Nice to see you.
Tommy.
Tom,
I'm a little concerned that you think I'm not sporty enough to be on this show. I am from Boston, and I think the Celtics are doing pretty well. And I live in New York now, and in honor of my daughter Camille, I've actually become a Yankees fan. And
Good for you.
The Yankees are also in first place, Mike.
Yes, so, they are, but they have 28 wins, not 30. Just for the record,
better than last season.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
I don't think of you as sporty, Tom, but maybe you are.
Every once in a while, I can turn on the charm.
There you go.
Well, let's dive in. So you've been a part of Uplift now for how many years?
7 years.
Wow. Which is fantastic. I mean, really, certainly a growth area of travel. I love to see when different models kind of take shape in the industry, help grow travel. I think again, you could say that certainly this sector, the part the buy now pay later aspects of it have fueled travel growth, and certainly travel growth as this part of this, let's say, explosion of leisure travel coming out of the pandemic. I think you guys certainly saw some pretty serious upticks in your business as a result. But maybe just starting off, tell us a little bit about Uplift. What do you think consumers find attractive? Why? Why do they come to you? And then ultimately too, also, why do suppliers partner with you? Because I know you have a lot of you've really developed a lot of really active supplier partnerships as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, this business has grown exponentially even before the pandemic. It is a multi-billion-dollar business that we've really grown from essentially nothing. Across literally hundreds of partners, including, excited to hear you're at Southwest next week. Southwest is one of our, deepest, oldest, and certainly most thoughtful partners, along with, other great brands in the industry, such as United, Carnival, Norwegian Cruise Line, Wyndham, Choice, in the hotel space, and a number of other brands, that literally hundreds of other brands. It's a great model for consumers. It allows consumers to, take the trip of their dreams, and it's kind of why we're all in the travel industry, right? We're about making people, allowing them to enjoy life and take the trips they've wanted to take, and take their kids to Universal or wherever it may be, and that's kind of what we do. And we do it in a thoughtful and respectful way, right? In that, we're not in the business of giving people loans that they can't pay back. That frankly doesn't work with our business model. Right. It's been very effective for our partners in helping them grow conversion and revenue, for a long time now. And we're an integral, really an integral part of their marketing, right? This is really a marketing tool, much more than just a form of payment.
Right. We touched on it with the articles we just mentioned, where the credit bureaus are starting to make some noise. I don't know whether that's being triggered by just the sheer the size of your business, but also a number of other businesses and industries that kind of have adopted some of the same, payment, technology and models, right? How do you respond to that? Where do you think that line should be?
Yeah, look, Uplift has for several years now reported transactions to the credit bureaus. So we believe strongly in that. We think it's good for the credit ecosystem. We think it's good for consumers. And again, back to, we're all about responsible lending. That is, core to our DNA. It was core to, our acquire upgrades DNA, and so, we're about responsibility and making sure that we are lending responsibly and being able to fully understand what a consumer's credit stack looks like. To use Capital One's term, what's in their wallet, right? Is important to us to be able to make thoughtful decisions about extending credit. Because again, back to the fundamental core tenet of the business is I don't want to give people loans that they can't pay back, right? That's not good business. It's not good morally, and frankly, it's not good business for us either, right?
Right.
We, our suppliers are not on the hook for loans that go bad; those are on us. And so, we want to be thoughtful about this. So again, we've always reported. We think that's important. It's also, I think somewhat due to our nature of our deep focus on travel, our average order value is considerably larger than anyone else in the space, right? I mean, when you're buying a Carnival cruise, that you're talking about a couple $1,000s, or a family of 4 on Southwest, even if they're not paying bag fees. We're still talking about, it can be $700-800, right? And even more now, with inflation and everything else. So again, we want to understand what's out there. We want to report these loans. And the other thing it does is, by reporting these loans, it helps consumers build their credit rating, right? I mean, that's we want, people to do.
So what is like a typical transaction look like? You said like terms of like, it might be somebody, again, more likely it's a higher transaction value where they won't have the need to spread the payments out. But what's like the length, like what's in kind of a standard like length of the loan period? Like what's that look like in terms of?
So, I mean, importantly, we sit on our partners' websites and in their call centers, right? So we don't have a standalone, you can come to uplift.com and learn about it, but you can't actually make a transaction there, right? We're not an OTA, we're not any of those kinds of things, right? So we are embedded, in the booking path at United or Southwest or Frontier or Spirit, Emirates, etc. And the consumer goes through the booking path. They are immediately scored by our proprietary algorithm, and then given 3 offers, right, of credit. And those can range in term length from as short as 3 months to as long as even 24 months, and that's obviously dependent on the transaction size. And that also then allows the consumer to really choose what's affordable to them, right? And within that window of 3 months to 24 months. And there's all various terms in the middle there. It's not either 3 or 24. It could be 9, it could be 12, 18, etc. And so that gives customers a lot of flexibility. The other thing that is really important to the model is for suppliers to be able to offer 0% interest. So where the cost of the interest is actually moved from the consumer to the supplier. And, that's a significant portion of our business today. And, what that does is it enables suppliers, again, to open the funnel, broaden their appeal to consumers and different segments of consumers, but also to really do some interesting things, again, back to this being a form of marketing, not just a form of payment. That enables them to, think about share shift and think about, where they can offer 0% to move demand, right? Literally to move demand from, if we're talking about the Cancun hotel market, right? We have a great partner in Apple Vacations, which is owned by Hyatt, that uses 0% very effectively to, target specific hotels where they want to move share from one to another. And that's been very effective for them. And, we have airlines that do similar things, cruise lines. NCL is, again, very effective in using 0% as a way to drive demand into soft spots.
Well, and in there, you really hit on that point about, the role in terms of helping the supplier community drive better conversion, which is not coincidentally, when we talk about NDC, with airlines, hotel pricing and everything that's changing in that environment too. All these things in really fundamentally are about better conversion, right? Increasing that transaction value, personalizing the approach, And like you said, the way you're embedding that into the path, you're kind of, giving that option at a time when they're making a real value decision about, household cash flow. Like I've got, I know I can afford the trip, but, geez, wouldn't it be nice, especially at 0% interest, to be able to say, okay, I don't have to like come up with the full amount like now. I don't have to tie up all my funds. I can plan for it a little better. And even if, at a zero interest model, it really makes it a lot more attractive, especially on those big ticket items. And, we talk about all the time about, all different ways where it's like, okay, what can we do to help enable and, generate and drive more travel in the industry just overall? Like you're increasing the size of the pie, and that's great stuff. I mean, anytime our headwinds and tailwinds every week are about, what are we doing to help the industry, and where are we putting up these kind of sometimes really artificial roadblocks to doing it? But this is the exciting stuff. You weave in AI and different ways that you can enable give people better ways to find, create more options. It's all good stuff. It's really interesting. But man, as always with this, they always talk about, well, oh, this is like this new thing you've been working on for 7 years. It's like, this isn't. It's
well,
like,
as you know, the supplier community is not always the fastest moving community, right? And so, it takes time, right?
It does. It does.
We had to build the product. We had to, get our partners to agree and test and learn, and now it's an important part of their mix.
Well, one thing I did want to ask you, I know this isn't like necessarily in the Uplift category, but I'm drawing off of your hotel experience, because when we all met, Ed and I were at Sendant, the big conglomerate of brands, including what we now know as Travelport and back then it was Travelport and Orbitz and which is Wyndham Hotel Group and Avis Budget.
Right, a conglomeration.
It was. But we knew you when you were at Starwood, which you have to be over 40, I think, to know what Starwood is or was. But now it's just was absorbed and acquired by Marriott, and a big part of the Marriott family. But back then, that's when we first met and got to know you. You've been, in and around the hotel industry your whole career. With all this, with dynamic air pricing that's happening, where that's going, attribute-based pricing on hotel, like a lot of concepts that are just being, kind of coming to the marketplace. Do you think all that's going to create a better customer experience, or a more confusing one? I mean, you're dealing with all these suppliers, with your model, but is this a good thing for consumers or not? Ultimately.
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, certainly in the airline space, metasearch was born on, differences in pricing, right? You would find weird things happening, and guess what? We're going back to that, like all of a sudden there's different, different pricing, right? And Americans certainly leading the charge on that. And, when it comes to hospitality, the attributes are really what makes a hotel. And I think what we're starting to see now, what's going to get interesting, right, is with Chat GPT, because of course, how could we have a conversation without mentioning that? Starts to get really interesting when you think about the content that's out there, and how are you able to manage that content, right? In the old days, it was as simple as like going into the GDS and clicking a thing that you had a pool, right? Or the Expedia partner network, and saying, I've got a restaurant, or here's the name of my restaurant, or whatever. Well, now it's like this spiral of just content that goes on and on forever and regenerates and whatever else. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how that gets managed, right? I think that's a definite problem out there. That's only going to compound itself as we get into this, because it's gotten far more complicated for hotels. And so we'll see where that goes.
Well, I think, we said too, I mean, again, it's coming, just like, everything with NDC is over 10 years old in terms of, and now it's just becoming like the thing that everybody's talking about and dealing with. Right. But that's, it takes, like you said, the travel infrastructure, overall ecosystem is complex, man. A lot of moving parts, takes a long time to make the change. You think it wouldn't, it's not purely technology, right? It's a lot more than that, but okay. So we want to ask the final question. We always talk about what's changing, what's new, what's coming, but any thoughts about, for our industry and everything else, what do you think that's not going to change?
Well, I think one thing that will never change is that I will always enjoy seat 1A in the pointy end of a plane with a glass of wine. Like, that's never going to change, and so that's
Good
a
answer.
thing.
Yeah.
But I think more seriously, we're certainly at a time of increased change, right? And whether it's NDC or whatever, the latest, thing is, but still at the end of the day, this industry is really about bringing people together, right? That's why we're in it. That's why we're passionate about it. That's why we don't work for Gillette selling razors, right? Because travel is fun and exciting, and there's a certain romance to it. And I think, and certainly hope that will always be the case. And for new people entering the business, I think there's still that allure and that luster, and that's what's kept me excited about it for a long time. Besides seat 1A, which I don't get very often anymore.
Yeah, the upgrade days on status are very different than they were years ago, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Tom, thanks a lot. I mean, appreciate you making the time with us.
Thank you, Tom.
And, giving us some
pleasure.
good insight
Great to see you, gentlemen.
A dynamic part of the industry. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, Tom. Tom is the Chief Commercial Officer of Uplift. Tom, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Okay, Mike, we will be right back with our headwinds and tailwinds. Just a quick shout out. I want to thank Omni Hotels and Resorts for their continued support of Travel Again. We will once again be staying at the Omni Los Colones next week in Dallas for our roadshow. Their staff is great. The facility is great. The rooms are beautiful. And they have just treated us very nicely as we head to complete this roadshow in Dallas. So a big thanks and shout out to Omni Hotels and Resorts. Mike, we will wrap today with headwinds and tailwinds, and you're up first with headwinds. What are your headwinds this week?
Yeah, so my headwind is more activity in and around our U.S. government and the airlines. The latest one, it was an article that just came out that the airlines are being looked at more closely potentially by DOT. They kind of put out some comments saying that they're looking at the fact, are they devaluing miles, and basically, looking at the fact of, are they kind of selling, let's say, points at inflated, kind of values to direct to consumer versus what credit card issuers get, creating inequities. There were some hearings on it, which the airlines didn't attend, or the major ones didn't attend. Yeah, and sure. I think it's just more, again, where what you hope is that, look, the airlines need to market themselves and conduct business, with different channels differently. They're certainly going to advantage, give, have arrangements with credit card companies for co-branded cards, et cetera, et cetera. And, certainly the right to do those things. I think just some of the concern, though, is back to this, the same issue, just different topic, right? But this kind of consumer clarity, like the understanding from a consumer what you're buying, the fairness of it, do you really fully understand what you're getting, and are there basically real inequities being created that aren't just normal business practices, right? And I think that's some of the areas where, again, I think there's a line to walk there. I think it's not always clear, so I don't want to jump to any conclusions on this, but it's just, we seem to have a lot of these lately. And from past experiences over the years of watching the airlines, the ebb and flow of their success, it seems like when they're peaking and when they're having, in good times, they're always looking for ways, because they're publicly held businesses. They have shareholders. They have expectations about next quarterly earnings and trying to drive profitability, that you always worry in those times when you're always trying to better your best, quarters, that they start taking and doing things that have unintended consequences around the consumer. So kind of a long way to get there, but kind of saying, airlines beware. This is the stuff that everyone watches and tries to watch closely, right? And and I think it's good. That's the role of the DOT. It's the role of government to watch after those things, right? So again, just things to another one to watch. But again, one where you go, let's not. Hopefully, we're not getting to a place where anything that's touching miles and points, which really drive a big part of the industry and growth.
Yeah.
And even like, again, the models we were just talking about with Tom, those are really important.
Yeah, they drove a huge surge in travel. So
absolutely, right. And they're good, for the economy. So let's encourage them responsibly, but also the suppliers have to play their part.
Okay. Mine this week is a tailwind, and I don't know about you, Mike, but my kids only have a couple of short weeks of school left, which means summer is here. And the headline I read is a monster summer travel season is rapidly approaching. And this was reported in a couple places, and a couple of hotel brands came out and said that they're looking forward to an incredible looking summer. And so summer demand is up. That's great for the travel community across the board. And so end on a high note with lots of summer activity coming. That should help us jet into the next season following summer, but looking forward to a very active summer. And that's good news for the travel industry.
Very good.
All right, Mike, thanks. That's our show for today. Thanks again to our sponsors, Southwest and Omni Hotels and Resorts. And we will see you back here in a few weeks. Thanks, Mike.
Take care, Ed.